is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
Round number 8 of the IMSA Online Sports Car Championship heads to South America. I am Connery Maddock. With me today will be Stephen Burbidge, and you do not want to miss this fight in Sao Paulo, Brazil, just after this.
Assist to the front bumper, and he hits him again now. Rayon Fowler into the outside wall.
He's going to pass nearly 3 cars down that front straightaway, and he's going to get them all done with. What amazing.
Lee to the inside goes Logan Clapman is going to touch in. Pit press sideways. What a save.
Look to the outside as Tronke goes off. De Jong into second place.
Going for the switchback. Oh, pinpoint driving.
It's howling down to the inside.
I tried, there's contact though.
Slide left to the racetrack. Chris Venner drives it back down underneath, and he takes that second spot right back. Joker goes to Garrett Lowe.
Garrett Lowe should take victory with all that contact. He's going to try and make the move around the outside the Parabolica. That's not going to work, but he's going to try and get the cutback here. Get the run out the Parabolica. That's beautifully done there. Makashube, there's a little bit of door banging as well.
We've had some fantastic action so far this season in the IMSA Online Sports Car Championship here on iRacing. It's RaceSport TV Friday primetime, streaming live on the iRacing Esports Network as well. I am Connery Maddock, and joining me in the commentary booth for this week's race will be the one, the only, Stephen Burbidge. And as qualifying is drawing to a close here, Stephen, I just gotta say, I absolutely love this racetrack. I just love how that middle sector just sort of flows. How you have to get the car slowed down, and your lines through those corners are absolutely imperative to get yourself a quick time coming through there. And it can also play host to some fantastic, and I mean fantastic, side-by-side racing given the correct conditions.
Definitely, in that midsection, because it goes right, left, right, that's why we get those long side-by-side battles that fans just love to see, and it makes it a very exciting race. But on top of that inside section, it's extremely technical. You also have the first part and the last part of the circuit, which is extremely fast, so drivers kind of got to balance out. Do they want that high-speed grip and that low-speed grip?
It's definitely a toss-up between the two philosophies, as Interlagos is definitely a track that has everything quite high in terms of its elevation above sea level as well. Currently the second highest track on the Formula One calendar is Sao Paulo, so that is also one that you do have to consider when you talk about racing here at Interlagos, as qualifying is pretty much done. I'm not actually seeing any cars out there on track right now, but so that'll give us a good amount of time to go through our qualifying grid in quite a relaxed fashion. Currently, it is going to be the driver of Kim Salverson, pole position in your prototype field. Gustavo Pereira will line up on the front row next to him, and then behind them, it's RaceSport TV's own David Haynes lining up next to Joseph Ringrose in P number 4. And then P number 5 on the grid for your prototypes. We'll go to Doug Costa. And the final car in that entire prototype field, Juan Joluca, He will start right at the back of that prototype field with a 1:31.905. Cycling things down then to your GTE field. Benjamin Gonzalez taking pole position, and he was a driver that was definitely within a fight for the race win a couple of rounds ago at Montreal. Arthur LeHook getting himself onto the front row of the grid as well. We've got Thomas Gibson and Drew Caroni, row number 2. Row number 3 will consist of Thibaut Kazubon and Rafaele Rezag there. Oh, Rezag, excuse me. And then further behind them, we've got Salva Talens and David Pena Jimenez. Very mid-pack for those guys. Barry Morrison, Efkan Berkaya, and then Sven Haas and Bruno Fontalba will bring things further back through that field. And surprisingly, Johan Harth, third driver in terms of iRacing in this field, very much near the back of that GTE field. Richard Arnault as well, a driver that we usually see a little bit further forward than that, has to start pretty much second from last on the grid on your GTE field. Lewis Goodway will be the final car in that particular class. And then you got to look all the way down to your GT3 machines. Sergei Maturana taking pole position in that one with Marcus Furiel lining up next to him. We've got Soran Kolozic there, as well as Yannick Danish, Dave Cameron, and Diego Soares bringing things back to the mid-pack there. Christian Bug, we've got Andres Bertoni, we've got Tonio Orideres there, Siam Skinner, and Tunion as well. Further back, you've got Jordan Fisher and Luis Mercado, Stuart Dick. We've got Albert Esteves and James McRitchie lining up final row of your entire 37 car grid here today. And we're just waiting for the rest of the cars to get themselves up onto the grid behind, well, not even onto the grid, up behind your roof pace car. So we just got a couple of moments here just to get our bearings, just to take a deep breath before what could potentially be a very, very crazy race, Stephen, especially when traffic gets itself involved, because in that slow sector, things are equalized somewhat between the classes.
Yes, they are, and I'm really going to be interested to watch Johan Harth, because we've been watching him run in the prototype class the last few races, and he's really just put on a show-stopping performance. So to see him in GTE and so far back in the grid, it'll be interesting to see how he comes through the field during this race.
It'll definitely be a very intriguing thing to watch. That pace car will pull itself off. We've got Kim Salverson behind the pace car right now, leading the way, as we'll get shots of the cars starting to get themselves going then, as these classes will prefer to get themselves spread out before we get the start of this race. It doesn't always happen, of course. It depends what the class leader is feeling like on any particular day. Interesting that we don't have any, and I mean any, race clutch drivers in your prototype field. This is the first week where we haven't had any race clutch drivers in your prototype field, so we could potentially see a new winner in that particular class. Kim Salverson has been so quick. Of course, last time out of Spa, he did say that he was very, very new to the car and he was still able to pull out a fantastic performance. So keep an eye on him. Your prototype pole positions that you see in that field just rounding their way around. Coming up towards Gunshout now are the prototype class, whereas the rest of the GT cars are still in that middle of the lap. Just running up the hill then. This is one of those big traction zones coming out of Yunsao. If you can get the slipstream all the way down through this very, well, appropriately banked curve called Arquibancadas, then you can set yourself up for a move down in towards turn number 1, but we've just got a couple of moments now before we get this race started, and that pace car will pull down. Oh, he's gone very early. That, I have never seen this before. We're going to go racing here at Interlagos. Kim Salverson, was that a jump at the race of the start? I am not too sure, but they're underway anyway. Battle for the race lead then for your GTEs. Arthur LeHook has managed to get himself in front of Benjamin Gonzalez on the green flag. Can Gonzalez then fight back down in towards turn number 1? He's not even going to posture to be able to go down the inside of the center S's then for the first time in your GTE field. Looking further back though, GT3s, their start has been a little bit calmer, but here comes the battle for P number 2 between Furiel and Kolozic Kovacic around the outside. Number 18 driver on the brakes in that AMG Mercedes. Is he able to make it work? He's just not able to. Coming through the center S's, has to fall behind into that final podium spot. But there's a close battle behind as well between Yannick Danish and Dave Cameron. You can just see that Dave Cameron's just right up the back of that AMG Mercedes ahead of him. As you see this GT3 field just swerve their way down towards the left-hander downhill, the Cedar del Lago, and wow, I'm not sure what to make of that prototype start. It seemed like Kim Salverson went way too early. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what happens. Maybe you can have a bit of a better insight there, Stephen.
Well, at least on my end, it sounded like race control had given the green flag before the pace car even pulled off, so that might be some things they need to look into.
Yeah, there certainly is. We'll have to see if there's been any black flags, especially for Salverson going that early. Although, I don't know, there is such a thing as like sort of timing the start, letting the pace car get so far ahead that, you know, once you can time it, once it comes down on towards the lane, you can just hit the 100% throttle and you'll be clear by the time they come down towards the lane. But actually overtaking the pace car before it heads down on towards the lane, I think that's a big no-no, and I think Kim Salverson has done a wrong there. Whether he'll be punished for that by the iRacing system still yet remains to be seen. We're actually right on board with him right now. He's got a huge advantage over the rest of the prototype field, standing at about 2.4 seconds right now. And I think with his qualifying time being the way it is, like miles ahead of everyone else, I think he's just going to run away with this one, at least in clear air.
Yeah, it looks like he might just do that, but I'm also kind of waiting to see with his performance last week. He was driving all sorts of sideways getting into the car, and part of that is probably getting used to it since he said he was new to it. But it'd be interesting to see if he's able to keep the back end underneath him as the race goes on.
Further back in your GT3 field, though, still battle for P number 4 on track. Yannick Danish versus Diego Soares through the very fast multiple right-hander there as we go down in towards the middle sector of the lap. Diego Soares now inside line, coming through the 90-degree corner, 180-degree corner, excuse me, and Soares managing to get himself ahead. Fantastic move from Soares, getting himself that far up the field after qualifying a little bit further down than the rest of these guys. And just having a look, he's gained 2 positions on his qualifying already. Same with Dave Cameron, who's that GT3 machine sitting P number 3 at this moment in time. So fantastic move so far for your mid-pack runners in your GT3 field, Stephen.
Yeah, further up in GTE, everybody's staying real polite in single file, but again, we see the 4 GTs leading the field with the Ferraris and the Porsches following suit.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we've come to expect now from GTE field. Those 4 GTs looking so very strong, but right now it is very much a train of Fords right at the front of the field. You have to look back all the way down to David Pena Jimenez to find a Ferrari. So that is the issue that the Ferrari's having to deal with, as actually Jimenez is going to come under attack here from Salvatallans. Down in towards turn number 9 then, the Pinarino. Salon's not able to make the move quite yet, but you can sense the inside line so many times. When
Johan Hart just made a big dive.
Johan Hart has made a move further back through the field. Driver of the number 3 slots himself ahead of the Porsche of Sven Haas, but Sven Haas riding all the way on the back of that Ford, makes his way down the inside for Yuan Zhao. Does he get that car slowed down enough?
Oh, there's the crossover.
Has to take to the grass and has to get himself back on circuit as well. That's a lot of time lost for the driver of number 11.
Man, oh man, what a battle. I figured we'd see something out of Johan Hart. I did not expect to see it so soon.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic driver, but still a long way back to get to the front of that GTE field for him. We'll have to track his progress throughout the rest of this race. But right now, as it stands, Kim Salverson leading the way from David Haynes, Joseph Ringrose there, P number 3 in your prototype field. Meanwhile, in GTEs, Arthur LeHook leading Gonzalez from Gibson as well. That's the top 3 in your GTE field. And in GT3s, Sergei Maturana has managed to get away from Marcos Furiel a little bit here, with Dave Cameron being P number 3 in that particular field at this moment in time. And I'm noticing a rather large split that has happened right down the middle of your GT3 field. And actually at the front of the second pack here, Audi driver number 24, coming under the attack from CM Skinners. They're all going to stack up behind, and Klostich actually going to get a huge amount of contact there in that number 18 machine, but somehow he manages to keep it on track, and somehow he manages to still continue a fight with a Vario Tunon here as Estevez further back tries to get himself involved as well. And that's just what happens sometimes coming down into some of these corners. Stevens will see Tunon look for the inside through the right-hander, but simply not able to slot himself anywhere inside that AMG Mercedes ahead of him. So he'll just have to calm down just for a little bit. But as I was going to say, Steven, sometimes through some of these corners, if you make that slight error and you're slow in the middle of the corner, you're just going to stack up everyone behind. And that's the exact concertina effect that we saw down into the Interlagos that time.
Yeah, and that's a very complicated corner. And to be honest, that could have gone a lot worse than what it did. So to see everybody, despite the bunch up, everybody kept it on track, pointed the right direction. It's pretty good overall.
Oh, Gonzalez has run into an issue. The second place runner in your GTE field has had himself an off down at the Interlagos. What has happened here? It's a single car incident, and the car just broke away from him. We'll get the replay up on screen for you in just a couple of moments. There we go. We'll see this one from Benjamin Gonzalez. You can just see that car sort of center of frame right now through the middle of the corner. Car broke away. Everyone has to scatter behind to avoid. And that's a single car incident for your second place runner. He's cycled all the way back to the back of the GTE field now, Steve.
And it's right there at turn 4. We saw the trouble with the GT3, and GTE's no exception in that. It's just that Ford GT, you said a few weeks ago, you know, it's really twitchy, and when you get it over that edge, it's not very forgiving. I think that's what we just saw there.
Joseph Ringrose, driver number 34, has lost the position to Doug Costa, driver number 35. And that was done coming through the center S's as Joseph Ringrose actually had a little bit of a self-spin of his own, losing a lot of time parked on the outside of the center S's, and rejoining the track. Was very close to actually collecting Doug Costa there, but Doug Doster, sorry, but Doster will make his way through up in towards number 3 in terms of that prototype field. So he's starting to work his way back up, but our main feature right now is actually this GTE field, because Arthur LeHook, the class leader, starting to get away a little bit, but everyone else from P number 2 back is still absolutely stuck together, absolutely nose to tail. Thibaut Kazubon looking for P number 3 right now as they go into that tight and twisty middle sector once again, where you can just make these battles last for absolutely ever as the advantage switches one way and then the next. But Kazubon, he decides to take a little bit of a wider entry there, coming through the Pico de Pato, but still not able to capitalize on any overspeed off the corner that he'll get. On the run down towards Yunshao now. Not an opportunity for Kazubon to make his way by, and this is one of the situations where get the traction down, sit in the slipstream, and then you think, maybe I can make my way down the inside at the center S's. That could be the plan for the number 1 machine at this moment in time. We'll have to see exactly what he decides to do.
It could be, but what's really interesting is a little further back with Peroni. He is feeling the heat from P number 4. Is that Kazubon, and he is just looking for that spot to take that 3rd position away.
Yeah, exactly. Up on the curb a little bit there with Drug Peroni. As I said, you have to be so careful in these Ford GTs with the curves due to how low their ride height is. But he manages to get away with it this time, as it's a very, very close battle for all 3 podium positions in your GTE class. Right now, the other classes have spread themselves out a little bit. A bit of a compromise line through the Interlagos, though, for Gerard Peroni does mean that Kazubon is able to lock right onto the back of him. Does Kazubon decide to send it? He does send it down the inside at turn number 8. There's a bit of ball barging through the middle of the corner. Elbows out, boys, because Kazubon's making his way through.
And now you got Peroni in between 2 teammates. That is not a comfortable position to be.
Oh, it's certainly not a comfortable position between those 2 positive sim racing cars right now. Just, oh my god, that's going to be a certain concern there for that particular driver. Actually, that's the LDLC cars. That's the LDLC by TX3. Sorry, the PSR cars and the LDLC cars have very, very similar color schemes. So sorry I mistaked them there, but go on, Stephen.
Oh, no, never mind. I was going to go for a pun, but it doesn't work now.
Oh, it doesn't work because they're not actually positive. There we go.
Right.
Anyway, we'll continue on with this race now as I just had a little bit of a look at, well, at least Thomas Gibson had a little bit of a look at your GTE race lead there coming up through the center S's, and he's going to be very close through the Curva del Sol this time as well. So he definitely has an opportunity to pounce when it comes to that middle sector, or maybe he'll do it now. Has a little bit of a look through the through the Descida del Lago, but not going to go for it as the track starts to drop away through this corner before you get the uphill battle then up towards Ferradura and Curva de la Ranca as well. But still no opportunity for Gibson. Does he send it down the inside, that turn number 8 like we've seen previously? He doesn't decide to do it just yet. So Gibson's just biding his time at this right now and maybe make his move later on.
Ooh, so it looks like in the further back in the field in GT3, we've got a nice battle showing up for third. It's a similar dynamic to what we have in GTE, where you got the one car leading and the 2 cars back, just looking for that position.
Exactly. Certainly an interesting dynamic back there, but I do want to bring the attention back to this GTE race lead, because Gibson got a decent run coming through Gunsal that time, so he's able to maybe look for the move down in towards the center S's. Now you can just see visually he closes up all the way down the pit straight, sitting in that slipstream, looks to the inside line, so battle for the race lead on for your GTE race lead, and Gibson easy does it, makes his way through, but I don't think this is over, not by any means, Stephen, because look at that, Arthur LeHuck, such a good run through the center S's. He can get the pass back then down in towards the Descida del Lago if he decides to go for it. Does he decide to go for it? The answer to that one is going to be a categorical no.
Yeah, it's hard to, if you don't have the run just right coming out of the center S, that to set it up for turn 4, it's just got everything's, all the pieces got to go right into play, otherwise it becomes extremely risky and there's no sense losing the race at this point.
Yeah, exactly. You're still in that first stint, so maybe those risky moves aren't really an option if you're more concerned about getting yourself to the end of the race. But GTEs is all where it is at right now. The entirety of your top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars could potentially take the race win at this stage. Of course, that may and perhaps almost certainly will change once we get the pit stops done and over with. But we're still quite far away from that point right now, so we don't have to worry about those things just yet, as they'll snake their way up through towards Arcabancadas now.
Of course, you know, kind of thinking about pit strategy and traffic like we spoke earlier, traffic really hasn't become an issue yet. So once those pit lane cycles come in, I think we'll start seeing that traffic play a bigger part in the pace of this race.
Yeah, definitely, since your prototype leader is starting to hit all the traffic now and it's quite congested back there in your GT3 field. It's going to be a long time until these GTE machines manage to catch the GT3 traffic, so it's not a huge concern on the priority list right now for your GTE class leaders, but it's certainly something to keep in the back of your mind for later on in this race, because traffic at this track can be a little bit concerning. I think is an understatement there, especially coming through the middle sector.
Well, I think the key here is patience, and a lot of drivers tend to get impatient, especially at that middle sector, because you know you don't have that big advantage between the classes that you can just quickly power by. So if you get caught again, oh, he's gone again.
Oh no! Oh no! Has he had another instant? He has, through the exact same corner. Oh no, Gonzalez, it's the same issue that's reared its ugly head. We'll have to cycle things a little bit further back than that to get a good idea, but I think we might as well have deja vu at this point. Riding on board with Benjamin Gonzalez, exact same issue, into the corner, car way, way, way too loose, and he just decides to call it a day there.
It just looks like he's got the car all loaded up wrong going in that corner, and it might have been a setup issue.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Thomas Gibson leading Arthur LeHook right now in your GTE fields. That pass was done by Thomas Gibson. I have to wonder where it was done though. Just was it coming through the CNRS? I do have to wonder. No, it wasn't on the last lap. I'm just okay, there we go. We'll get this one sorted. It's Thomas Gibson from LeHook from Thibaut Casabon right now. So that is this order of things in your GTE field. And
Caroni is falling back to fourth.
Yeah, Caroni just falling off the back of this one just a little bit, but this is where all the highlights are going to come from, this GTE field. But of course we do have the battle for the race lead in that GT3 field to be concerned about. That one is starting to get within a second now between Sergei Maturana and the car of Marcus Furiel. So Furiel can definitely be back in this one in your GT3 field. But all the entertainment. I'm just going to say this now. Like, pretty much the GTE field is the one to watch right now because everyone is just completely stacked up. It's the highest strength of field in your race right now. 6,263 is the average iRating of the drivers in this field. So there is no shortage of talent out there on track.
No, there's definitely no shortage of talent in GTE this race. But I think that's why we see such intense racing and everybody's so stacked up together, is because the average is so tight and the skill levels of these drivers are so close together, and that's just one of the beauties of the iRacing service.
It absolutely is. Everyone in this GTE field, insane iRating, but we've only got one Pro World Championship driver among them. That's going to be Salva Talens. So many of these guys, when the VRS GT iRacing World Championship heads to the GTE machines for next season, then some of these guys might actually get themselves to the forefront GTE specialists. And Thomas Gibson had a little bit of a concerning run there coming through the Interlagos, but not enough to come under threat from Arthur LeHook as they hug their way through Ferradura now up in towards the right. And still no opportunities for the change of the race lead for Arthur LeHook, neither for Thibaut Casabon. And if you're Arthur LeHook in this situation, Stephen, you have to be thinking, okay, now I can focus on actually chasing that car down that's ahead of me, because behind me I have my teammate of Thibaut Casabon. So Casabon is not going to be so aggressive with Arthur LeHook here, so LeHook can get his head down and get the job done in terms of the race lead. Yeah,
a little further up, the prototypes are having a little bit of trouble with GT3 going through the Senna S. Sorry, just to pull away from the GTE a little bit. But look at this. I mean, it is just wild to see. Oh, in trouble.
Oh, big trouble in the back of your picture.
That was Skinner.
Yeah, that was CM Skinner. Let's have a look at what exactly had happened there on the replay. They're side by side with Orderes there, down in towards the Interlagos. The MG Mercedes on the inside there, bit of contact through the corner, and this spins here. Well, CM Skinner does decide to go for a little bit of a slide, and well avoided there behind from Jordan Fisher, who almost collected Skinner as he was rejoining back onto the racing surface. We will get back to the live pictures then, sticking with this GT3 field, because there are quite a couple of battles in this one, well, this one is one of them. Christian Brugge versus Andreas Bertoni there for P number 5 out there on circuit, and Bertoni's not too far off the back of Yannick Danish either, so that could be a battle heading their way down in towards the San Andreas. In fact, I'm almost no, I was going to say I was almost certain it would be a battle, but the thing is, Bertoni's gone so deep through the corner, almost runs into the back of Yannick Danish. Danish was so slow coming down the pit straight there. I'm just having a look. He does have a little bit of front end damage. That's not going to be a concern though. So maybe just the higher downforce setup being used on that number 19 machine, which means he does lose quite a bit on the high speed sections.
Yeah, and things are going to get really interesting because here comes Haynes.
Yeah, exactly. Let's have a bit of a look. Yeah, David Haynes making his way through on a couple of GT3 cars right now. He's going to come up on this battle very, very shortly. You can actually see him in the back of the shot right there as he just appears. So prototype traffic is going to be an issue for these GT3 battles, and if they're battling side by side, then I think the prototype behind is just out of luck. So they'll just have to just wait for a couple moments, not go for a risky move, as David Haynes getting himself onto the back of this one now in that Daytona Prototype, trying to find a way through, but simply just not able to right now, as Boog will follow his man very close, coming up through Yunsao. That's a missed apex there from Bertoni, as we're riding on the back of Bertoni right now. You see that Daytona Prototype make his way through on the best section to be able to get those passes done. But the thing is, Christian Boog has been so aggressive over the past lap that I don't think he's going to have an opportunity into the center S's this time. But I think Boog does have the overall pace here.
I'm a little curious what happens going to here with Haynes, because last time through he really struggled with the GT3s to get by and stay ahead, but he seems a lot more stable this time through.
Yeah, he certainly does. Able to deal with the traffic just a little bit better. The gap between himself and the overall race leader, though, stands at about 8 seconds, so that's still quite a gap to be able to try to make up. But we'll try and work on it through his pit stop and through the second stint as well. You never know what kind of traffic issues your overall race leader will have to deal with. But looking back towards your GTE field then, still the battle for the race lead on, and it's all 3 podium positions, all within contention with each other right now. But ever since Thomas Gibson made his way past, Arthur Hook doesn't seem to have been able to reply right now, at least. But the other option he could be going for is maybe for a little bit of fuel saving behind Thomas Gibson and maybe get that jump in the pit stop. That could also be the strategy card that he's going to play. But we'll see more obviously if he does have a slight opportunity or even a moderate opportunity. If he decides to go for that, then of course he definitely prefers the track position. But if he doesn't go for an obvious move, we can definitely tell he's fuel saving.
Wow, Rosenberg just went for a defensive mood on Talons.
Yeah, so the Talons further back in your GTE field then. That's going to be a battle up towards the right-hander. Here we go through the Pico de Pato, and there we go. Silver Talons managing to get himself ahead. Gets himself up into P number 11 overall. That was a very simple move there. Down the inside at turn number 10, down the inside at Pico de Pato, and just position secured on the exit as well. Pretty textbook.
Yeah, and it looked like he was given that position just a little bit, and that might have been a bit of self-interest there, considering there's a little bit of elbows out in the previous corner.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, there we go. Battle for the GTE race lead. They're going to go out again through the center S's. Arthur LeHuck has managed to squeak his way through here. And Thomas Gibson, oh, what has happened to put himself in that position in this race? I'm going to have a look back. It was a move to the outside, a move to the inside for Arthur LeHuck on the replay, down the inside at the center S. There's a little bit of contact just there between the two cars, but they managed to get themselves through okay. This GTE race lead battle, I think, given the right conditions, it'll go all the way till the end.
Oh, well, and I think the biggest thing we're going to see here is pit lane strategy is going to be the make or break of this race with these 3.
Definitely, and you've also got the wild card here for LDLC by TX3, and that is Bibu Kazubon there. So it's 2 teammates against Thomas Gibson right now, which is not the position you want to be in, because he doesn't have the luxury that LeHuck had of not being pressured from behind. Kazubon now is absolutely going to pressure Gibson from behind, so he has to be looking in 2 places at once.
Well, that's what they want him to do. If he's smart, he'll just focus in front, because the guy that's behind you, he's got to look for a clean place to pass. As long as Gibson doesn't allow Kazubon to get into his head, I think he'll be able to hold off P2.
I think he might just be able to. We've had a visitor on towards the lane. That's the number 37 machine of Juan Joduca. That's in your prototype field and towards the back of your prototype field as well. So I don't think that's going to give us any indication of when these guys will decide to head their way in. As David Peña Jimenez, oh, he's got himself involved in an incident with Bruno Fontalba coming through the center S's, and it's Fontalba flat out just running into the back of him coming through the corner. That's just the way I'm just going to describe that. Just look at it. There we go.
Oh, wow. And that was a hard hit, too.
Yeah, it basically spins both cars towards the off the track, as we'll get another view of it on board with the car of Jimenez. And there's just absolutely nothing you can do about that. You know, it's a sort of rear-end incident. Unless you completely brake check the guy behind you, then of course the guy behind is going to be at fault. So I'm not sure what the thought process there was from Feltalba. You get to see the car slowing down. You can see the Ferrari ahead on the brakes. Well, I think that's just a lapse in judgment.
It might be a lapse in judgment, but also it could have been, he might have been thinking that the Ferrari is going to go for an outside in, so he was giving up the first corner to be faster coming out of the second and third. So the car behind was thinking, well, if I carry a little more speed in, I'll be able to go to the inside of the turn 2 of the Senna S and take the...
That's a moment. That's a moment there from Pereira in his battle with Doug Doster for P number 4 in your prototype. I'm always catching myself trying to call these Daytona prototypes LMP1 cars, where they're very, very, very much not. Very much not. There's leagues of difference between these cars and the hybrid powered machines. But right now, this is a battle that's towards the back of that particular field. Pereira further behind, having that massive moment coming down through the Interlagos. I think he was just completely not expecting the 3 wide with the lap traffic that was going on down through that corner. So he just basically panicked, tried to make the corner, but thankfully on the exit of the Interlagos there there is a decent amount of runoff that you can use, so it's not too big of an issue if you outbrake yourself down into there. But we've got almost getting to around about 18 minutes left in this event. In fact, exactly 18 minutes. So we are very much sort of over the halfway point here. So we will have to see a couple of cars at least come down on towards the lane over the next couple of laps. But the thing is, it's going to be the case, especially in terms of your GTE race leads, who blinks first.
Yeah, and Gibson coming out of that tight left-hander before they race back up to the start-finish line was really struggling there, and I didn't know if he was going to be able to keep it on track. So it seems either Gibson's starting to use up the tires, getting too much heat into them, or he's starting to crack under the pressure a little bit, or feeling the pressure as the time's starting to run out.
Oh my word, these podium positions in your GTEs are so close. It'll be fantastic to see if they're this close at the end of the race. Here comes the run for Gibson. He's having a look for the inside. He is going to send it. Cutback move on for the hook. He's not made the corner as Gibson gives the position straight back. And now he's going to come under threat from Kazubom behind, up in towards Ferradura. Kazubom's looking for the inside. Oh, that's not a gap that you can go into. He'll back out just in time there. Scary moments for your top 3.
Not so much scary, but I think we're starting to see the claws come out a little bit. We'll see how this goes in these closing minutes, because I think these 3 are far from over in terms of their battles.
Yeah, meanwhile, there's a prototype behind wanting to make its way through. That's Juan Duca there.
Bump just got into him.
Yeah, there was a little bit of bumper banging there coming through turn number 10 between Thomas Gibson and Thibaut Kazubon. And Kazubon is doing his teammate a world of wonders right now, because he's applying the pressure so much that Gibson just has to focus on him instead of trying to catch your race leader. Now there's a slight gap developing between P number 1 and P number 2 as well. The Daytona Prototype will head its way through on the outside of all of these cars, maybe inside of your current race leader of Arthur LeHook. Right now is they're going to go for it. LeHook had to miss the apex though, as the prototype has actually outbraked itself. Oh my word. And oh my god, Gibson will actually try to make his way back. Oh no! Oh, that's it. Almost a huge incident. Gibson manages to hold it somehow. Gerard Caroni will get himself up into P number 3. Can this GTE race get any crazier?
Well, I said it earlier. Traffic is going to shake things up, and that's what we just saw 100%.
Oh, Caroni and Gibson once again battling up in towards Ferradura. Gibson outside line, Caroni inside line there for Caroni, trying to get over the curbs. The car being a little bit squirrely through the first apex, but then getting it slowed down for turn number 8. Squeaking his way ahead is the race clutch driver of Gerard Caroni. Gibson cycled all the way back down from P number 2 down into P number 4.
And Talons is looking for it.
He's going to look for it as well. Salva Talons side by side with Gibson. Oh, Gibson not able to get the traction down off the corner. He was all over that curb, and that is how quickly things can change, especially when you're in a battle for the race leads.
It can, and what I was watching with Gibson a little bit before we got he fell back was you could tell from his race line he was starting to crack under the pressure. He was hitting the curves a lot more aggressively. His lines were he was starting to miss his marks compared to what he hit previous laps. So I think we're starting to see that, and it looks like he just went down pit lane.
Yeah, it does look like as GTE pit lane is open right now. Same with your GT3 machines as well. So a little bit of overlapping, so the pit stop window here between your two GT classes, which is certainly very, very interesting. As having a look back to that GT3 battle for the race lead, we did have a pit stop come through for those guys. Sergei Maturana did come down on towards the lane, so your current race leader in that one is Marcus Furiel, but can Furiel challenge in terms of getting himself his pit stop done as well and cycling himself back into that fight? That's going to be the issue that you have to question here. Is that prototype not by the GTE race leader still? Yeah, because Juan Dohuga, driver number 37, that prototype that caused the world of hurt for the driver of Thomas Gibson, is still not past your GTE race leader right now. I'm just having a look at his pace because, correct me if I'm wrong, he's basically running GTE pace in a Daytona prototype. That's a little bit concerning. It's a little bit concerning. But it's just one of those things that you do have to deal with when you do have a very, very small field. As there we go, Arthur LeHook down on towards the lane. We've also got the car of, if I can spot them, that's Jordan Fisher down in as well. So both LDLC by TX3 drivers, LeHook and Kazubon, deciding to take their pit stops at the exact same time. Battle coming down the pit straight though between Dave Cameron and Bertoni then for that's going to be the number 26 and the number 31 car right now. Battle for P number 3 on the track in your GT3 field. And then there's Yannick Danish involved in this one as well. So this might also be a battle to watch for the end of the race as well, as they get themselves into the Decido del Lago then. Through that corner, easy does it. Careful not to track out too much, because that curb can spell the doom of so many drivers that have pushed their way wide there. What have you spotted?
Oh, it just looked like we were going to have something there with the GTE race leaders as they're coming out with the GT3, and it looked a little dicey going into turn 4.
I was just spotting a battle between... No, it wasn't Gibson. I was just seeing Salva Talens just jump up and down on my timing screens there, but that might just been a quirk with how the lapping procedure is going on right now. Is currently Talens trying to get around the GT3 machine and makes contact with it, but it was only a slight tap, so Talens is able to make his way through and try and chase this race now for those podium positions. But we still have yet to see Gerard Coroni and David Peña Jimenez head their way down on towards the lane. So we're going to have to wait for them, and then we'll see where they cycle out, especially Gerard Coroni, because he's got himself into a battle for the podium positions now. He's on the lane right now. He gets himself stopped in his box. Does he overshoot? No, he doesn't. So he's got himself in the box just fine. So now is going to be all on where he comes out.
Oh, Skinner sideways going into the Sinas.
Yep, they were. Gerard Coroni down on the lane. Arthur LeHook has already made his way by up through the Curva del Sol, whereas Kazubon, he's dealing with a bit of GT3 traffic right now through the Curva del Sol. But the thing is, Coroni, I don't think that's a net gain or a net loss in terms of time for the battle for the podium positions, so he'll slot himself back into P number 3. David Haynes has actually decided to head his way down on towards the lane, and Kim Salverson has already done so. So I think Salverson will re-inherit the race lead here. In fact, he has already done so. That so much is the gap between those two drivers, right at the top of your prototype standings. But we still do have battles on, ladies and gentlemen. There's going to be one for P number 3 in your GT3 field. Dave Cameron currently leading this train around, consisting of himself. We've got Andreas Bertoni, Yannick Danish involved. We've got Christian Boog as well. So a 4-car train for P number 3 in GTE.
You mean GT3?
Yes, I do mean GT3. Thank you very much for the correction.
It's all right. Yeah, and I think what's interesting about this 4-car train is you've got the AMGs up front, but then you get that Audi right behind it. It seems the BOP on those are really well set this season, and because from the last 3 weeks we've really seen, you know, the Audi either, you know, ahead or if it's just right there. So they've got these cars with GT3 extremely well balanced.
At least for this particular track, you do have to argue. So the AMG Mercedes starting to you know, show its true colors and able to get itself around this track a little bit faster than some of the Audis in your field right now. But I'm just having a look to see if we do. Yeah, it's just the. Of course, it's just the AMG Mercedes and the Audi for this for IMSA, because they are German manufacturers of GT3 machines. So we don't have any Ferrari GT3s, we don't have any Ford GT3s, we don't have anything like that. So just those two manufacturers battling it out in a GT3 right now. Dave Cameron coming under pressure from Petit, but Petit had a bit of a moment coming off the corner, so he'll still be able to challenge though on the run down towards Yunsao as you start to drop away down here, as this track does offer quite a bit of elevation change, climbing up the hill now back in towards Yunsao, and oh, that's a little bit of oversteer for Andreas Bertoni coming through the corner, and that could mean that he comes under threat now from Yannick Danish behind. But Danish hasn't really been showing much speed in terms of its straight line of his car's straight line performance, so I don't think he's able to challenge down in towards the center S's, because his car is just not set up that way for the straights.
Yeah, I'm just sitting up here looking at the GTE field, because we've got Gibson and Rezak going through GT3 right now, and those two are extremely close, and I was waiting to see if something's going to happen here.
Yeah, they are extremely close. Of course, Gibson, before he had that unfortunate altercation, shall we say, with prototype, one of the prototype cars, he actually finds himself solidly mid-pack right now and still trying to chase this race. But with 7.5 minutes to go, unfortunately, I don't think for Gibson that a podium position is on the cards right now, unless something catastrophic happens up the front.
Whoa, Johan Hart just had a major slide checkup and slide going through 4.
Yeah,
you know, he's somebody we haven't really talked too much about today because he started further back, but he's making steady progress up to the field. I mean, he started 19th overall.
Oh, he just had a bit of contact with the GT3 machine of Audieres, and now as a result, the car of Stuart Dick is able to try to challenge coming through the slow speed sector. There's Sven Haas as well, very much on the back of this battle. He can't be happy at all as they head their way through towards turn number 10 right now. Is it going to be 3 wide off the corner? Surely not coming down through this section. They'll try it anyway. Audieres still on the inside. Stuart Dick has managed to get himself ahead, but a little bit of door banging coming on the entry to the corner there. Sven Haas on the outside line, Audieres on the inside line. Audieres has to back out. He simply doesn't have the line through the corner to be able to get the speed off of the corner. And now Jordan Fischer is getting himself involved right now through Archibancta, squeezed towards the Armco barrier. There is Jordan Fischer, not given a lot of room to work with at all, but you have all the room on the inside line down in towards the center S's. Deep on the brakes goes Audieres, still able to fight, still will actually defend the position right now as Fischer, he is still looking very, very strong. So we'll have 2 battles on your screen right now, because Sven Haas has got the run over Stuart Dick. This is battle further, almost at the back of your GTE field, and they're still going absolutely tooth and nail. Sven Haas has made his way through. He, of course, was in the GTE machine, so he had a huge moment trying to make his way through, but the thing is, Jordan Fischer and Audieres still battling it out up towards Ferradura, but Fischer not finding any track to work with.
No, and Sven Haas, you know, is not happy about that whole last 2 laps because he's lost so much time on Johan Hart.
Yep, he has lost so much time. We do have to remind everyone, still a battle for the race lead in GTEs that could be on between the 2 teammates, of course, as long as they have enough of a buffer zone to the cars behind. You don't want to be battling with your team and all of a sudden find you have a third party involved that can just absolutely mess up your 1-2 finish. So they'll wait until maybe the final couple of laps to get that one sorted.
Speaking of a party in between, Talons and Peroni have got a party in between their battle.
Yeah, exactly.
With
Talons down the inside of the GT3 machine, no problems at all for him. So we got battle for P number 1, battle for P number 3, battle for P number 5 in GTEs that could get close before the end of the race. And meanwhile, in GT3s, things have spread themselves out just a little as a result of that little bit of a moment that they had with the GTE machine. But right now, it's still Sergei Maturana leading the way in that field from Furiel, from Cameron, Bertoni, Boog, and Yannick Zanish. And those latter three are all within a second of each other. So there's still battles happening. There's still potential grandstand finishes to be had here with 4.5 laps to go.
And Salva Talon's just closed the gap up on Coroni again. It really seems like the Porsche's got a bit of an edge here, especially to the technical section in the middle of the course.
Yeah, exactly. We'll follow them then down through the left up towards Yunsao then. Salva Talon's looking very, very good indeed behind the wheel of that Porsche. Able to close about 0.4 of a second on that last lap, so he definitely has the pace over Gerard Coroni right now. And he'll also have the benefit of the slipstream all the way down these very, very long streets, able to make the track as short as possible coming through the final corner. And I know some leagues actually do ban sort of cutting across the pit lane entry there, since you know, of course, you know, the leagues are free to do what they wish in terms of their rule set, but in the iRacing official sporting code, it's completely fine to do that.
It is, and the V8 Supertruck is one of those series that they do do it as an interest of safety, which I think, you know, it does have its value because it is a bit of a blind corner. But I mean, that is the beauty about the variety of sanctioning bodies we do have here on iRacing as far as options for drivers.
Yeah, exactly. Just dipping under 3 minutes to go then in this one. In round number 8 of the IMSA Online Sports Car Championship. Still battle for P number 3 then in your GTE field. Gerard Coroni versus Talons, and Talons is now looking aggressive in these final few laps to get himself onto that final step of the podium. Wide line being taken then through turn number 10. Late apex being taken as well, but not able to get on the power as early as he'd like because Gerard Coroni had parked his car right in the middle of the corner. Didn't want to run into the back of that Ford GT. Another wider line taken from Talons. He's really trying to maximize these exits and might just get it. There's a bit of a wiggle there from Gerard Coroni off the corner, and that's going to result in him not being able to get the traction down, not being able to get the acceleration and top speed coming down the straight. But Talons, he's actually out of the slipstream here. He has to go around the outside at the center S's if he's going to make this move. He's going to half commit to the move. Look for the inside then coming down the hill.
He's going to go for the run.
The apexes. He's going to go for the run, exactly, Stephen, through the Curva del Sol, and maybe complete this move then down in towards the Descida del Lago, onto the DRS straight then if we were in F1, down towards that left, very fast left-hander defensive line then taken by the French driver of Gerard Coroni. Forces Talons to try to get the cut back off the corner. Down the hill they will go, and then up towards Ferradura they will continue. This one is going to be great.
Oh, and it is, and this is what we love to see, especially when you got manufacturers battling. So unlike some of the other battles you've seen there where it's like Ford GT, this is Ford versus Porsche, and it's just one of my favorite things to see on circuit.
Yeah, it is absolutely brilliant to witness, but Gerard Coroni holding strong right now. He's had a couple of moments where he hasn't been entirely comfortable, especially coming off the exit of Yunsao, and that's just such an important traction zone to get your best advantage possible coming down the pit straight, as Gerard Coroni is starting to just manage the gap a little bit. Has to be so careful over that curb, but doesn't make the mistake he did last time, and actually does get the power down rather comfortably coming out of that corner. So I don't think Talons will have an opportunity here unless he goes for an almighty send down the inside. Yeah, exactly. We'll have to get back to that one, as actually Salva Talon's going for the outside through the center S's. He's gone so deep that he's having trouble getting himself back to the apex for the second apex of the corner. And I think that will not be his final move. He still has 2 laps to go, as the lap time will tick down. There's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We'll get that one checkered flag out right now. So this is the final lap. So Kim Salverson heading his way down the straight, down the sort of back straight, down towards the Descida del Lago right now. That is the sort of marker that we'll just have to watch right now, as we'll see further back through your GT3 field, that battle between Bertoni, the battle with Christian Bug, the battle with Yannick Danish as well. That one's starting to get a little bit disrupted because there's GTE traffic getting itself involved in this one. So that is going to spread out this battle, or it might give a driver an opportunity that they otherwise would not have had. But right now it still stands as Bertoni, Bug and Danish in that order, as we'll have a look back then to Coroni, to Talons. What have they gone up to? They'll have one more lap to go as they head their way across the line here out of Gunsao, so they can continue on that battle. But I think Coroni might just have this for the final lap. He has enough of a buffer zone all the way back to Talons. What about your race lead? Lehook and Kazubon, they're not close enough to have a battle on the final lap either, I do not think, as here we go, Kim Salverson out of the final corner. A very comfortable win in Daytona Prototypes. Kim Salverson will come across the line. Driver number 20 will win here at Interlagos in the overall standings in that prototype. Blows the engine as he heads his way across the line. And then further back, we got to be concerned about the likes of Arthur Lehook, Sergei Maturana. I think Lehook will come across the line first in this situation, or at least I hope, in terms of him actually getting to the end of the race. He's not going to be challenged too much up towards the end of the race from Thibaut Kazubon, his teammate. As Coroni, we've had a moment. Where's Salvatalens? Salvatalens, he's out of fuel. Oh no! The driver number 9, Talons. Oh no! Oh, we've seen this happen so many times in this IMSA series, and it's happened again this time to Salvatalens. He's not going to be able to challenge Coroni for that final step of the podium. And it's just a procession now to the end of the race. I don't think Kazubon will have an opportunity unless Lehook gets held up here, but he's not going to get held up enough. I think Kazubon's just going to back off of this one and just have a show for the cameras, because it's going to be a 1-2 finish in GTEs for LDLC by TX3. Arthur Lehook will win in GTE. Thibaut Kazubon coming across the line, P number 2, and we've already had Sergei Maturana win in GT3 as well. And what a crazy race that we've had here today at Interlagos. Unfortunately, didn't get the grandstand finish we perhaps deserved, but we had some fantastic racing along the way. And without much further ado, we will head our way to our official finishing results. In Prototype Field, it was a plain sailing for Kim Salverson right at the front of the field. Takes the race wing by just under 10 seconds from Racesport TV's own David Haynes there in P number 2. Joseph Ringrose will get the final step of the podium in Prototypes, with Pereira, Doug Doster and Tuan Yoduka rounding out the rest of that 6-car field. Then in GTEs, Arthur Lehook taking the race win by 0.4 of a second over his teammate of Thibaut Kazubon. But in the middle of that race, that was just a fantastic battle between those two cars and the driver that finished in P number 6, Thomas Gibson. But the rest of the positions will be like this. Gerard Coroni, P number 3. We've got Rezag. Very quiet race, but still ends up finishing P number 4. Salvatalens running out of fuel right at the end. Still finishes P number 5 with Gibson 6th, Berkaya 7th, Haas 8th, Johan Haaf P number 9, and David Jimenez P number 10. As we'll look at the rest of the finishers in GTEs, we've got Richard Arnault, we've got Bruno Fontalba, Lewis Goodway, Benjamin Gonzalez, and Barry Morrison. Then GT3s, they give us a battle right at the end of the race. Sergei Maturana winning by 2.3 seconds over Marcus Furiel, with Dave Cameron finishing in P number 3. And then it was the train, Bertoni, Bug, Danish. They all bring things down to P number 6. Liam Skinner, P number 7. The 8th will go to Stuart Dick. We've got Tonio Orderes there. And then further back, we've got Jordan Fisher rounding out your top 10 in GT3s. Esteves, P number 11. We've got McRitchie. We've got Tunyon as well. We've got Mikado, Kolosiesh, and Soares, rounding out your 16-car GTE field.
And you did it again, GT3.
Yeah, exactly. But You're just going to correct me until the end of time. That's something I always get wrong. I do have to work on it. But we'll just have to take a quick break here on Race Sport TV and on the iRacing Esports Network. And after this, it's going to be the post-race show. Don't go away. The IMSA Online Sports Car Championship here on iRacing never fails to disappoint. Another brilliant race, this time at Interlagos, Sao Paulo, Brazil. I've been Connery Maddox. Joining me in the commentary booth is Stephen Burbage, and we've got driver interviews here in the post-race show. And why not? Let's get driver of Kim Salvesen into the commentary booth right now. And Stephen, you're standing by with the Swedish driver.
Kim, that was seemed to be a lot smoother of a race than what you had at Spa. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, but I thought I have a shot on the Spa. I messed up because I didn't take the opportunity. I was a little bit too cautious, but that's just speculation.
Well, it definitely seems like the caution that you learned or you used last round has really benefited you this round, and you weren't nearly as sideways, at least from what we saw. What was your strategy with the traffic here? Because we saw a number of the DPs having trouble with it in the prototype class, and especially with the corner speeds being so similar at the more technical corners.
Basically, you need to show what you want to do. I think that's the most important thing, and check if some guys are fighting. Maybe you can, but I have the privilege to have a good gap, so that's a little bit.
And having a good gap is always helpful.
Yeah, but we need more DP people. Where did all the DP people go?
Now that is a very good question. Now, as we wrap things up with your interview, anybody you want to give shout-outs, thank yous before we let you go?
Yeah, all races. Thanks for a good race, and congrats to all the podiums. And you guys, of course.
Well, thank you very much.
There we go. That was Kim Salvesen, be at number 1 in your Daytona Prototype field. And does anyone want to answer his plea for more Daytona Prototype drivers? I would certainly be on board with something like that for the final rounds of the IMSA Online Sports Car Championship. But we do have another driver that we can get into the commentary booth right now. Why not? Let's get ourselves. We haven't had, we've had David Haynes. There we go. He's in the commentary booth already. I didn't see you enter there, David. How are you doing?
Oh, doing good. I guess pretty happy with that race. A little bit sweaty, though.
A little bit sweaty, and for what reason? It did seem rather quiet in that Daytona Prototype field.
Oh, because it's almost summer in Australia. But, yeah, it's just the setup I had was a bit oversteery, a bit leery, and even though I didn't have much, I had like one race within my own class, you know, the traffic comes thick and fast. There was lots of GTs out there, and they're difficult to get past in that middle sector, which I think you said in the lead into the coverage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It was always going to be an issue for the prototypes here today, and that sort of congestion through the middle sector. Just how do you handle it as a prototype driver? Because I was always a driver that sort of stuck more towards the GT machines rather than the fast prototypes and open wheel cars. So how do you deal with those sorts of situations where you could know that these GT cars couldn't go anywhere at any point?
Yeah, you've got to either be very patient or very rude. And I think for most of the time I was patient. And I think compared to some of the other guys, I had a setup that was pretty good in a straight line. So I wasn't catching any of them too much through the middle sector. And then out of turn 3 and out of Zhongshao, I'd get past most of the GT there.
Here's a question. What would you say to try to convince people to drive the Daytona Prototype?
Corvette, America, it'll put hair on your chest.
There we go. I was expecting something entirely different, but no. It's America. There we go. Anyone
anyone with no iRating can get on the broadcast split right now in the Daytona Prototype. So that's why people should come and beat me. Yeah, exactly.
I could. That's a scary moment because, I always actually spectate this race as, because you get a car selection even as a spectator, and I always go in as a Daytona Prototype. So if I misclick and somehow join the session as a driver, I'd still be able to broadcast this race because I'd still be in the same race. That is the sad state of Daytona Prototypes right now. But is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go, David?
As always, I gotta say, I love SimSpeed Broadcasting, great guys. I love you guys at RaceSpot. You're very nice to me, very patient and very good-humoured. Also, obviously, my guys at my team, Team Huge Ass, our major sponsor, Dickens Cider. And I've also got to thank Johan Hath of Race Clutch for sending me a slightly used second-hand setup, but, it was hand-me-down, but it worked.
It did work. P number 2 at the end of the day. Thank you very much, David, for joining us. And we'll move on to our next interviewee, which will be Joseph Ringrose. That is another Daytona Prototype driver, finishing in P number 3. We'll get him into the commentary booth. And Stephen, you're standing by with Joseph.
Well, Joseph, that looked like you had your handful from time to time.
Yeah. Again, thank you guys for the broadcast before I start. Yeah, I mean, I didn't do much practice for the race, so bit of going into the unknown. Haven't driven the car so much, and I thought I had it. I was just going to stick with Kim, and then I made a little error going into T1, locked the rears, and spun. Just a silly error that I shouldn't be making. And then I was battling with Doug. After that, but I was running quite a high downforce setup, so yeah, I was kind of struggling on the pit straight.
Did you find with running the higher downforce, did that help you with the traffic, or do you find that hurt you more?
I think it definitely helped. Doug seemed quite cautious going into corners with traffic, trying to go side by side. He was only really doing it on the straights, and I just thought to myself, he's lost 6 seconds here. There's not really much point in trying to stay behind him. So I just sent it into turn 4. I mean, scared him out the corner. I didn't make any contact or anything. It was a fair move, so managed to get that one done.
Well, definitely playing the psychology game on any racetrack is very important. It seemed like you did that quite well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was after my spin. I just needed to get my head back in shape and just try and get the best result I possibly could. So, yeah, that's just the way I played the race, really.
Well, we definitely hope it's kind of spur you on to put a little more practice in for next week, and we look forward to see what you do. Anybody you want to give shout-outs or thank yous to before we let you go?
Yeah, I'd just like to give a quick thank you to Eric Andre, helping me with the car, the team, VRT, iRacing, great bunch of guys, and all of the Kevins out there for the support. Hopefully see you guys next week.
Look forward to seeing you as well. Connery?
Oh, there we go. So Sebring Rose finishing P number 3 in your prototype field. We do have a couple more drivers just waiting there, and why not? Let's actually get Arthur LeHook, your GTE race winner, up into the commentary booth. Salva Talons will just have to wait just a couple more moments to get his interview here, as we'll get Arthur into the commentary booth now. Arthur, what a crazy race at the front of the GTE fields. How did it feel behind the wheel?
Wow. First, it was a very hard race for Thibaut, for me, and for Rafael. I think we managed to make a good setup for the car, so at the start of the race it was very hard with the tires, and after like 10 laps the car was so good, and I managed to overtake Thomas at this moment. I was thinking, I think it's a good moment to go, so yeah, it was really hard, and I'm so happy with the win.
Yeah, I think anyone in your situation would be happy with the race win, and of course it was a 1-2 with your teammate as well, Thibaut. So how much did Thibaut help you in that race, especially in that battle with Thomas Gibson?
I don't think he tried to help me. We were on Discord, and we don't speak when we are racing, but Thibaut make his race, I make my own, so there is no like Formula One teammate like Valtteri who help another one.
Yeah, that was just an absolutely crazy battle at the front of the GTE field. So do you think if Gibson actually didn't have contact with the prototype driver making their way through, do you think you would have still been able to take this race win?
I think he used his tires a bit much than us, so I would say that at the end it would have been a bit more easy for us, because he was struggling with his tires at the middle of the race before he crashed with the DP, but we can't say anything. It's racing, and it's a shame what happened to him, so yeah. But I think we would have been in front of him.
Yeah, and well, that is just racing sometimes. Is there anyone you want to thank before we move on?
I want to thank the team, Virtual Driver, Trustmaster, also Thibaut, because he did a great race. We are working hard on setup, and yeah, we are now focused on Sunday for Sportscar Open at Monza, and hope the same result.
Yeah, that's going to be an absolutely brilliant race. That was Arthur LeHook, P number 1 in your GTE class. And finally, we'll get ourselves a chat with the man that unfortunately ran out of fuel right at the end of the race, Salva Talons. He's standing by with Steven.
Hi, goodbye.
How we doing, Salva?
How we doing?
Man, that was a
a
wild race.
Yeah, that was a bit a strange race, because I qualified 8th in the race, and that was very bad qualifying, but then I tried to overtake all the cars that I had in front of me, and yeah, after the stop I was in 4th position fighting for the podium, but when when there was 2 laps to go, I saw the fuel settings, and I saw that I hadn't fuel enough for finishing the race, so I couldn't fight for the podium. But I think it was a very fun race. I had a lot of fun with all the GT3s, lapping them and all that.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like an interesting time for everybody trying to get around the other classes, not just with the GT3s, but also with the prototype class. There was a lot of give and take and finding out where to take your position. And what did you find allowed you to be the most successful when dealing with the traffic with the other classes?
Yes, you have to know how to overtake all the lapped cars, because you can gain a lot of time with that. For example, when I made my pit stop, I was, I think, 2 or 3 seconds behind the third. The third position, the car that was in third position, and we reached some GT3s, and I think I lapped them a bit better than him, so I could fight for the podium a few laps until I hadn't enough fuel. But you have to know how to overtake all the cars, because with that you can gain a lot of time or lose a lot of time.
And that is very true. Now, just to go backtrack a little bit, you mentioned about not getting enough fuel. Were you trying to bank on when the leader would cross the line, and then you'd have like that one lap when he's finished, and then you just misguessed that, or was it just thought you had put in enough for the race and just hadn't?
Well, before I made my pit stop, I calculated the liters that I have to put in the car, because I thought that there was one less lap, so I put less liters that I had to put, and yes, I couldn't finish the race. But I realized of that in the last lap, because I was just focused when in the third position. I was fighting with him, and I wasn't looking at the fuel. So I realized that I hadn't enough fuel the last lap.
Well, even with running out of fuel, you still got a 2-position gain, which is not a bad way to go, especially climbing up to the field as much as you did. So that was definitely a good run, some positives to take away, despite things maybe not going as exactly how you wanted to. But before we let you go, any shout-outs, thank yous?
Oh, can you repeat, please?
Oh, sure. Anybody you want to thank before we let you go?
Oh yes, I want to thank to the broadcasting, because everyone wants to prepare the week for the race broadcast race. So I want to thank everybody that is doing all this stuff. I think it's very good for the community.
Yep, we do try our very, very best. That was Salva Talens then, right at the end of the race, trying to get himself into those podium positions, but unfortunately it was not to be. But I think that is going to be all we have time for then here on this edition of Race Sport TV Friday Primetime. I've been Connery Maddock, and Stephen Burbidge has been my co-commentator for today. That was round number 8 at Interlagos for the IMSA Online Sports Car Championship. Join us in the same time, same place next week. Goodbye.